is tough, especially when you have pets that are coming into play. Divorce attorney Tracey Coates is going to join us next with her tips on putting that custody battle to rest. Divorces are always the most complicated when a custody battle comes into play. And when it's for your pet, well, guess what? It really doesn't make it any easier. Tracey Coates, a co-chair of the Divorce and Family Law Practice at Cipriani and Werner, joins us for Puppy Wars, the reality of pet custody in divorce, and her tips for obtaining custody if this is the situation you're in. It's good to see you.
Good morning. Great to see you.
The star of our show this morning.
Exactly. This is Coco. She is a white golden retriever, and so she's my co-star this morning.
Yeah, and I mean, look at that face and that beautiful coat. Who wouldn't fight over her?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Although the way she's pulling away, I may not be getting custody of her, right?
she might be speaking volumes right there if the judge listens to the dog. But it's always been that really, even though our hearts have been in it and they're like our children, the pets have been viewed as just property.
You're absolutely correct. Sort of in the eyes of the law, pets have been traditionally considered to be personal property. So whether you're dividing a couch, golf clubs, Coco, they're all sort of treated across the board as the same. But a growing number of states, DC most recently included, are sort of now of the opinion that in terms of pets and other horses, dogs, all of that they are taking a different approach, and they are now requiring judges to hear evidence of the best interest of a pet standard, which is not too dissimilar from our custody standard, which is the best interest of the child. And so I really like the approach that they're not taking sort of the bigger step back approach in terms of how pets are seen, because in our eyes, they're family members, right?
Sure.
I mean, Coco's got parents, she's got a sibling, she's got aunts and uncles. So
there's relationships involved,
Absolutely.
Right? So dare we say the law is becoming kinder and gentler? Maybe.
Maybe.
At least in this regard. So let's talk about, things you need to think about maybe before you get married if you're bringing a pet to the marriage.
The number one thing that I would say that you need to think about is to create a prenuptial agreement in terms of outlining exactly what it is that you want to have happen in the event of a divorce with respect to your pets, because it gives you the best and most possible wide range of control. So spell out things like, who's going to pay the vet bills, who's going to cover the insurance costs, what's the visitation schedule going to be. All those things can really be addressed in a prenuptial agreement.
They can be addressed when everybody's sane.
When everybody's
and
sane,
emotions aren't involved.
Exactly.
Right, that's the key.
And you like each other.
and you currently like each other. That's always helpful. But things to think about, though, like say you're a couple. Obviously, couples are together a while before they get married, most. So you get a dog as a couple. Does it matter who buys the dog?
In some states, particularly those that still do consider pets to be personal property, yes, it does. And you should be prepared to sort of show the ownership roots, whether that is whose name is on the adoption paperwork or on the purchase agreement, but also really who is paying for these expenses. Can you show that you have had a significant financial contribution to the pet's life or his or her overall well-being?
Okay, so we weren't smart enough to do this and do all that before we got married. There's someone out there right now that's already married, they have a pet, now they're getting divorced, and they're really fighting over it. So how do you go about getting custody? What are the things that you need to prove to the judge?
Well, in addition to sort of who is paying for these things and who's the ownership, when you get married and you don't have a prenuptial agreement, it becomes marital property. And so the line is sort of a little bit blurred. So in addition to proving the financial aspect of it, you really need to also prove who can continue to afford the pet, right? There are some of my clients own horses. And so if they're moving from a house into, say, the city in Georgetown, where are you going to board this animal? Who's going to pay for it? Can you afford to continue the lifestyle of the pet? Those are really important things to consider as well.
I don't mean to laugh, but you think about the life that the pet has become accustomed to. It's just like,
There are some pets that are probably treated better than some people.
Yeah. Okay. What about this one? I also think is interesting. Consider the bonding, because so maybe you're going to have, even if you have joint custody, but maybe you have the dog or you have the kids through the week or whatever. Do you need to consider the bonding, or even 10 a dog tends to bond with one spouse more than the other.
I think you really do. I think that's one of the most important things to consider, right? Like, who generally wants this particular pet? And I think while courts don't have necessarily a mechanism to say who loves the pet more, it really is going to show up in all the things that the person is doing, training, grooming. There's a really interesting case a couple of years ago in which a judge said, you know what, two spouses were fighting over a particular pet. We're going to put the pet into foster care temporarily. We'll come back at a set time. Then I'll make my determination as to who's going to get custody. Well, between those two spouses who were fighting, who only wanted this one animal, only one of them went to go and see that particular pet in the foster care on a regular basis. So guess what? That is the individual who actually had the pet at the end.
Yeah, I guess the pet doesn't really get to decide, because you're right. I'm not sure Coco's choosing either of us.
I think you're right. I think you're right. But maybe if I bribe Coco, does Coco?
And there you go.
And she's back.
All right. Thank you so much. Such wonderful advice. Always appreciate your insight.
Thanks so much.
And there you go. There's Tracey's information if you want to find out more or you need other advice when it comes to your relationships.